This one's wife. What she really did at Soho House. Engleson exposes. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. They say every secret has a keeper, and sometimes that keeper isn't a stranger. It's the person who once knew you best. Before the crowns, before the cameras, before the speeches about love and change, there was a story this one's wife never wanted the world to hear. A story buried so deep, it almost vanished until now. Because according to people close to Trevor Engleson, there was one night, one party that changed everything. It happened long before palaces and crowns, when this one's wife was still moving through Toronto's elite circles. The kind of world where the rules were written in whispers and broken behind closed doors. And what Trevor Engleson knew, what he allegedly saw unfold that night, would later become the story nobody wanted to tell. A story that could rewrite the way that this one's wife was seen. Accordingly, we go back to when the facade first cracked, the night that never reached the papers. Apparently, there are nights that change everything, the kind that never make headlines but shift the course of people's lives forever. One of those nights purportedly happened in Toronto in 2016. Apparently, this one's wife was at the centre of something dangerous, something so risky that it had to be buried fast. She was still the Suits actress back then, glamorous, confident, already running with a wealthy crowd that partied hard behind closed doors. When Prince Harry came to visit her that summer, things weren't meant to spiral. But sources claim this one's wife wasn't just hosting a private evening, she was arranging it. The setting, the people, even the supplies. The night was supposed to be simple. Champagne, laughter, music echoing through a borrowed penthouse. But then something went wrong. Very wrong. Now, pausing there. What you're listening to is the content of a video that purports to tell us that this one's wife's Soho House activity has been exposed because Trevor Engleson drops shocking proof of something that occurred back in 2016. As you know, Trevor Engleson is the former intimate partner primary source of this one's wife. He has never spoken out about his marriage to her. Others have talked about this one's wife's reprehensible behaviour with regard to posting the rings back to him. He has always maintained a dignified silence. Given the fact that he was married to a narcissist, there is little doubt that Trevor Engleson will have a raft of tales to tell about the sustained devaluation that he experienced. He won't have got away from it. Nobody ever does. This one's wife, as a narcissist, will have treated Corey Vitiello, Trevor Engleson, any other person that she had a long-term relationship with, in the way that she treats Prince Harry also. The fact is, they will have been love-bombed, smothered with seduction, given plenty of spicy poontang, and then the devaluation would set in. Nobody escapes it when you have the position of intimate partner primary source with a narcissist. Thus, Engleson will have much to tell us about this one's wife, but as I explained, so far he has kept his own counsel. And yet, this video claims to have unearthed something that occurred in relation to the behaviour of this one's wife. Continuing with it, it explains that this one's wife had stepped out to pick up a few extras, but it doesn't clarify what those extras were. And it was suggested that it wasn't just for her, but it was for Harry and someone else that nobody expected, Princess Eugenie. Apparently, there was panic and confusion and a close call that nearly drew police attention. But before it reached daylight, it was over. Phones went silent, names disappeared, and the story just vanished. No one reported it, no one dared to do so, because by morning people realised this wasn't just another Hollywood mess-up, This was a royal-level scandal waiting to explode. And somehow, it never did. The video explains that Toronto had its own version of Hollywood, quiet, rich, and hidden behind private memberships. Well, that's hardly a surprise. In many large cities around the world, that's the circumstance. But it explains that right in the middle of this was Soho House, where this one's wife was practically royalty before the crown ever touched her head. Sources who knew her back then describe a woman who moved through that scene like she owned it. Well, that would certainly be an accurate description of this narcissist with her grandiosity. She knew everyone, she knew everything, and when certain guests wanted something specific, something discreet, this one's wife always knew where to find it. This wasn't about cocktails and gossip. These were nights that lasted until sunrise, nights where laughter got louder and decisions got dangerous. The word supplier came up more than once. Apparently this one's wife didn't just join the party, she made the party. She was the one people trusted to keep things running smoothly, to make sure the right guests got what they came for. In those circles, that is what made her valuable. She wasn't just charming, though I have to say she lacks charm, but she was useful. That would seem more accurate. And that kind of power can be addictive. People close to her said that this one's wife thrived on being in control of the room. Well, again, that would be an accurate description for the behaviour of a narcissist, because as you know through my work, there is the necessity of control being the most important aspect of the prime aims. It was explained that she was bold, commanding, and already mastering the art of becoming whoever the night required her to be, which suggests some part of shape-shifting on her part. Again, the behaviour of a narcissist. Long before Prince Harry, there was Trevor Engleson, this one's wife's first love. Well, that's not quite accurate. Her Hollywood connection and the man who thought he knew her best. It then talks about the wedding that they had in Jamaica and the fact that she was running the show again because guests remember her showing up with bags of pre-rolled joints, over 100 of them, perfectly lined up and ready. And the suggestion is that this was part of a pattern, the same one that would later define her Toronto days. It suggests that this one's wife was the party. It goes on about the various aspects of this one's wife that Trevor Engleson admired and adored. But it explains that he didn't fully understand her because friends noticed how she moved through people, which again is the behaviour of the narcissist, utilising people as the commodities as they are seen. Describes her as charming one moment and distant the next, always watching. The trip became unforgettable for everyone, but not for the reason that Trevor Engleson expected. Because in those Jamaican nights, the woman who rolled joints for 100 guests wasn't just celebrating love, she was rehearsing control. The same control she'd later used to climb into one of the world's most powerful families. To understand this one's wife, it goes on to explain, you have to understand how she lived, not as one person but as many. She had a gift for compartmentalising, for splitting her life into clean polished boxes that never touched. Again, that is an accurate description of the behaviour of certain narcissists that keep certain worlds apart from one another. There was the friend her castmates saw, witty, relatable, one of the girls. There was the version for the Toronto circle, confident, in control, fluent in the unspoken rules of elite nightlife. And then there was the quiet one she reserved for Prince Harry, the woman who listened, who comforted, who made him feel like he was finally understood. Each version was real enough to believe, but none of them was complete. Again, this would be an accurate description of the way that a narcissist such as this one's wife would behave, being different things to different people and looking to keep those worlds apart. The fact is, it continues by explaining that her closest friends admitted they never knew where they stood with her. She could be warm one day and icy the next, which of course is the idealization and devaluation, the black and white thinking, the splitting that occurs with narcissists. It was also explained that the fact is that Harry was the rebel royal, The soldier who drank too much, laughed too loud, and carried a reputation for breaking rules. The palace tried to polish him, but inside he was restless, and this one's wife didn't try to tame him, rather she understood him. She didn't lecture him about his wild side, she joined in with it. She didn't flinch when the nights got wild, or when Harry wanted to disappear from the world. She let him do that, and as a consequence of that, that made her irresistible to him. It continues by explaining that by the time Harry realised how much he needed this one's wife, she'd already rewritten her role from girlfriend to confidant and from confidant to saviour. That was the way that she went about it. She didn't just walk into Harry's world, she became the only part of it that felt real. By the time Prince Harry and this one's wife's relationship started making headlines, the Toronto chapter was already gone, sealed off like it had never existed. Sources close to the situation claimed that after the 2016 incident, the night that nearly exposed everything, a quiet operation began. Phone records, hotel staff, even local gossip circles went dark overnight. It was as if the city itself had been told to forget. The palace was preparing to present this one's wife as a fresh, modern face for the monarchy. They couldn't afford noise, especially not the kind that hinted at illegal activity or royal indiscretion. So the story was buried before it could breathe. Those who knew what happened were asked to stay loyal. Some say they were even paid to stay quiet. Others were simply erased, unfollowed, blocked, removed from the narrative. When this one's wife stepped into the royal spotlight, her past was spotless. No traces of the woman who once ruled Toronto nights, no whispers of the circle that made her name feared and desired. To the public, she was now something else entirely, the Duchess of Sussex. But inside palace walls, people knew better. They knew how quickly the royal machine had to work to bury her story. And once again, this one's wife walked through the fire untouched, protected by a silence she didn't create, but fully understood how to use. When she left Hollywood, her closest friends disappeared. When she left Toronto, her entire circle went quiet. When she left the palace, even her in-laws became strangers. This one's wife doesn't end chapters, she deletes them. Now, there is accuracy to that, of course, that the narcissist, having no emotional attachment to anybody, bolting people onto them but not being connected to them themselves, allows the narcissist that mobility to, when individuals or a group of individuals no longer serve any meaningful purpose, they can walk away from them. Naturally, though, it isn't without consequence. As I've pointed out to you many times, the law of collateral consequences that arises in relation to the behaviour of the unaware narcissist, that because they're so focused on operating in the moment, they're not concerned about what might come next. And indeed, in many, many instances, those what comes next returns to bite the narcissist on the backside and create a problem. The fact is that this video suggests that this one's wife was essentially a fixer of sorts through Soho House and when she was in Toronto. It suggests that there's some exposure from Trevor Engleson, but actually the video never gets to that point. It just simply talks about how he saw her behaviour, for instance, with regard to the creation of the joints at the Jamaica wedding. But beyond that, there isn't actually any exposure from Trevor Engleson. So this is, again, one of those videos which promises to deliver Trevor Engleson dropping the shocking proof, when in actual fact there's nothing of that sort. And you wouldn't expect that to be the case anyway. Trevor Engleson has consistently kept quiet about his time with this one's wife. Clearly, the creator of the video, which has been viewed some 38,500 times, and has many people believing its comments, knows something about the way that a narcissist such as this one's wife would behave. In truth, it reads like a piece of interesting fan fiction. But what it does suggest is that this one's wife's role was that of a supplier in relation to recreational pharmaceuticals. It's careful not to say it outright that she was a drug dealer, but it talks about how she was the one that basically kept the party going, that she knew where to get things, that she was the supplier. We know about this instance in Jamaica and the use of the joints. We also know that Harry has taken drugs. It's often a point of speculation that this one's wife indulges also. There have been instances where some of her behaviour appears that she's under the influence of recreational pharmaceuticals, but there's no direct evidence to support that she has ever been a drug taker. Her narcissism has certainly been careful enough to ensure that she is not admitted as such. There's no actual evidence of such activity, and it's unclear, for no sources are named, as to where the author of this video gets their information from to suggest that that's what she was involved in. It fits with the idea that the internet was somehow cleaned up for this one's wife. Again, an allegation that is repeatedly aired in relation to her to delete unsavoury aspects of her past. Whether that actually occurred or not, again, there's no direct evidence available to support that. But the interesting suggestion here is that it portrays this one's wife as a using individual, which is correct, a compartmentalizing individual, which is correct, an individual that moves through the scene, utilizing it for her own purposes, which is correct. But it would appear that the major point of exposure, whilst it's careful not to use the words directly, was to suggest that this one's wife's role in relation to Soho House was that she would organise these soirees and Toronto nights, as so described, and that she was central to them because she was involved in the supply of narcotics. It's an interesting allegation, and naturally, circumstantial evidence would support it, given what I've explained about Harry's own drug use, her appearance, and of course, the narcissist having a flagrant disregard for rules and obligations. The fact is, this suggests that her actual involvement at Soho House was to facilitate the supply of drugs, and that fitted in with involving Harry, and also it would appear to suggest that Princess Eugenie was involved as well. However, whether it's actually the case, they don't provide any definitive sources, and it is merely suggestion. What do you think, valuable viewers? Do you think this is a rather well-written piece of essentially fan fiction, drawing on aspects of this one's wife's life that are accurate in order to create a picture which paints her in that light, even though there's no real evidence to support it? Or do you think that it actually is truthfully representing how she did behave and how she came to be involved with Harry and why there was a rewriting of history? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.